Hi Storytime lovers! I'm feeling super festive today. Do you know why? Because the Christmas countdown has officially begun. There are so many reasons to love the days leading up to Christmas. All the caroling, trimming, gathering, feasting, rejoicing. Christmas is such a special time of the year. One of my favorite things to do is going through my children's books and getting out all the Christmas stories. What's your favorite Christmas story? In our home, we never go one Christmas without Mog, Stickman, and the Grinch. The story I have chosen to read aloud today was published long before you were born. In fact, it was published long before I was born. It's called Mr. Willowby's Christmas Tree by Robert E. Barry, and it was published in 1963, the same year McDonald's introduced their Filet-O-Fish, which means 58 years ago. So, what's the story of Mr. Willowby's Christmas Tree? Well, we know there's a Christmas tree and a Mr. Willowby, but apart from the title, there are other ways of knowing what a book is about. Do you know which ones? When you go into a bookshop or a library, there are usually two ways a book can catch your attention. First, the blurb on the back cover. The blurb is the short description of what the story is about. And then there is the book cover itself. Have you ever noticed that a book cover always gives you clues about what the story is about? Let's take the covers of some Christmas books. For instance, How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Take a look at this cover. What does it tell you about the story? Well, first of all, we understand that the Grinch stole Christmas by stealing the Christmas presents. And it's easy to tell he's stealing by the way he is tiptoeing sneakily away. As to how he stole Christmas, there is a huge clue given on the cover. Can you see it? That's right, it involves wearing a Santa costume and impersonating him. Let's practice with another one. The Snowflake by Benji Davies, which was published just last year. I'll give you a few seconds to take a look at the book cover. What do you think the snowflake is about? I would say it's about a snowflake who doesn't seem too sure, and a little girl who seems very friendly and is getting ready for Christmas. You can tell by the Christmas tree top she's holding in her hand, and what we can guess to be her house in the background, which has been decorated with shiny Christmas lights. And let's take a look at the cover of today's story. Now that you are an expert at analyzing book covers, what do you think Mr. Willowby's Christmas Tree is about? Well, first of all, we can tell that Mr. Willowby has ordered a very big Christmas tree for his very big house. And we can clearly see that the person putting up the tree is having a hard time because the Christmas tree is too big. Just look at Mr. Willowby's face. He is horrified. So now the question is, what is Mr. Willowby going to do about his ginormous Christmas tree? Try to put it in another room? Get a smaller tree? Well, let's find out right now. And if you have a copy of this Christmas classic, go and grab it and read along with me. Mr. Willowby's Christmas Tree came by special delivery. Full and fresh and glistening green, the biggest tree he had ever seen. He dashed downstairs to open the door. This was the moment he'd waited for. "A magnificent tree! Splendid!" he cried. "Please, sir, won't you carry it right inside?" "I think it might look best this year, right in the parlor corner, here." But once the tree stood in its place, Mr. Willowby made a terrible face. The tree touched the ceiling, then bent like a bow. "Oh, good heavens!" he gasped. "Something must go." Baxter the butler was called on in haste to chop off the top, though it seemed quite a waste. "That's great!" Mr. Willowby cried with glee. "Now we can start to trim my tree." When the trimming was well underway, the top was placed on a silver tray. Baxter said, I know just who'd be delighted with this Christmas tree." So it was presented to Miss Adelaide, Mr. Willowby's upstairs maid. "Won't this tree be a pretty sight when I have trimmed it later tonight? But the top, oh dear, I'm so afraid, will have to be cut," sighed Miss Adelaide. And so with scissors, sharp and long, she snipped off the top while she hummed a song. The top was set out the very next day in the back of the house to be thrown away. That little treetop caught the eye of Tim, the gardener, passing by. He certainly was not about to see that little tree thrown out. He hurried home straight away to see what Mrs. Tim would say. Fa-la-la! Surprise, surprise! His wife could not believe her eyes. "But our house," she said, "is so snug and small. I do not believe we need it all." And before Tim had a chance to shout, she cut off the top and threw it out. Barnaby Bear was padding by. It almost hit him in the eye. Now, who would throw a tree away so very close to Christmas Day? "I'll take it home, that's what I'll do. Look, Mama Bear, I've a present for you." "Isn't it a pretty tree?" yawned Barnaby quite drowsily. But Little Bear, standing off far, cried out, "That tree won't hold a star." Barnaby said, "Let's cut a hunk off of the bottom, here, at the trunk." But Mama Bear shook her head and sliced off the treetop instead. "Jolly by golly," Barnaby said with a kick. "Mama, that surely is just the right trick. Let's trim it with bells and honey rings, some berries and tinsel, and popcorn on strings." Mama said, "Trim it just as you like. I've got to tidy up for the night. This top won't need any more. I'll put it just outside the door." Later on that frosty night, Frisky Fox came into sight. He spied the treetop, rubbed his chin, opened his sack, and stuffed the top in. He scampered home and jumped his gate. This Christmas present couldn't wait. "It's even better than mincemeat pie," said Mrs. Fox with a happy sigh. Then the foxes saw that their Christmas prize was just a wee bit oversized. "There, my dears, don't you worry. I'll fix this top now in a hurry." Benjamin Rabbit found it then, just outside the fox's den. "It seems," he thought, "most certainly, Santa left that for my family." "Look!" he cried. "See the tree I found!" With that, he called his family round. Then there was a merry-making, rollicking, frolicking, carrot-shaking celebration around the tree. All were as happy as rabbits can be. Benjamin Rabbit, with his own hand, sliced a carrot and made a stand. "Now let's see how this will look in our little chimney nook." But right away the children cried, "Look, it's leaning off to one side." "It's too tall, that's all," said Mrs. Rabbit. And as though it were a summer carrot, she gave it a chop and threw away the top. Then Mistletoe Mouse just happened to see that tiny tip of a Christmas tree. He pulled it through the snow and ice, up some stairs. He fell down twice. At last, he reached his cozy house. "It's just the right size," said Mrs. Mouse. Then, at the top, if you please, they put a star made out of cheese. And oh, wasn't it grand to have a tree exactly like Mr. Willowby? The end. So now you know that a Christmas treetop can become the gift that keeps on giving. By the way, can you name all the people who enjoy a piece of the Christmas treetop? Press pause to think about it, and when you're ready, press play again. Let's see, there's Miss Adelaide the maid, Tim and Mrs. Tim, Barnaby Bear, Mama Bear and Little Bear, Frisky Fox and his family, Benjamin Rabbit and the whole family, and finally, Mistletoe Mouse, Mrs. Mouse and Little Mouse. What I love about Mr. Willowby's Christmas tree is that the focus is not on the presents you get, but the presents you can share. Can you think of presents you can share at Christmas? Like a toy, a game, a meal? If you have some interesting ideas, I would love for you to let me know in the description box below. Something else I really enjoyed about Mr. Willowby's Christmas tree is the message about recycling. Although, as I mentioned to you previously, it was written 58 years ago, the theme at the heart of this story is such a burning one today. It is a message about recycling and not wasting. Can you think of other things that can be recycled or reused at Christmas? For instance, I know that some people ask Santa not to use any wrapping paper, but instead to use fabric bags. Is that something you could consider? And here's another idea to consider. Before Christmas, you can decide to go through last year's presents, and if you have outgrown some of them, you can make a Christmas gift box and drop it off at a charity. There are plenty of operations that have started in the UK, the US, Canada, and many, many more countries around the world, and it's so easy to take part. Anyway, I really hope you enjoyed Mr. Willowby's Christmas tree with its uplifting and generous message. And if you want to find out more Christmas story recommendations, please visit my Christmas Stories playlist. Thank you so much for listening. Take care, read on, spread the Christmas sharing, and see you soon.